Yeah, that's the first thing I'd want to know. I'd almost run for president to learn about aliens.
Right.
I'm like, come on, bro. But then if I found out there were nothing, I'd be like, well, fuck this job. I quit. I don't want to run the world. I just want to find out about the aliens.
And then there's all these things that you find out. Jamie and I were talking about that before. It's like, you know.
Jamie's obsessed. By
Well,
the way. He's obsessed with Chicago.
I know.
Ohio, rather, Columbus, and
We were talking about
Operation
Nazis,
Paperclip.
right?
Yeah, yes.
I mean, I wrote a book about Operation Paperclip, and
Yeah.
my God, talk about a rabbit's hole.
That's a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole.
Let's explain to people that don't know what we're talking about. Operation Paperclip was when, after World War II, the United States gathered up a ton of scientists from Nazi Germany, brought them over to America, and even Werner von Braun. They had Werner von Braun run NASA. He was a Nazi, like 100% Nazi.
Good friends with Hitler type Nazi.
Yes, he ran a Berlin rocket factory where they hung the 5 slowest Jews. They would hang them out front so everybody would know, like, this is what happens when you work slow. We'll hang you. I mean, the Simon Wiesenthal Center said that if Werner von Braun was alive today, they would prosecute him for crimes against humanity.
Yes, they would.
And that was the head of NASA. That was the head of NASA. That was the guy who got us to the moon. That was the big cheese guy. Yeah. So we were willing to put a lot of really dark things aside in order to gather up the best scientists so that the Soviet Union couldn't get them all. And they got a few of them as well. But we got how many? More than 1,000, right?
Allegedly 1,400, but I would not be surprised if, you know, the story changes and there were more, right?
Yeah.
But that goes back to our discussion earlier about being in pole position. I mean, that's why we grabbed those Nazis. We were like, if we don't get them, the Russians will.
I get it. And, you know, and I'm sure the Nazis could say, I didn't want to do it. They made me. I'm a nice person. I love Jews. You know?
Well, that was part of the mythology. It was like, we got the good Germans. Well, no, we
Right,
didn't.
right.
We got the top Germans, and who do you think the top Germans were?
Yeah.
They were coveted by Hitler, Himmler, Goring, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were right. I mean, there were guys that we grabbed out of the docks at Nuremberg literally to come be part of our program, you know?
Well, if you're smart, you're an asset, right? I mean, that's what Genghis Khan used to do. He'd take warlords from the other side and capture them and go, listen, just come over here, bro. Come on. Work for me. I'm the man.
I mean, you know, ideology aside, I'm super smart and I want that to be known. That's kind of that's the competitor, right?
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
you cannot be the best rocket designer in the world and not want those talents, you know, demonstrated. That's
Sure.
Werner von Braun's story. That's the story of all of them. And that was so shocking writing that book because it's like, wow, you know, huge amounts of talent, but how far will the competitor go to see their baby come to fruition? What are they willing to put aside?
Yeah. Did you pay any attention to the other places where Nazis went when they escaped Germany, like Argentina in particular? Have you ever seen any of that stuff? Where they have entire German towns down in Argentina.
Right?
They do Oktoberfest down there. They wear lederhosen. They drink out of steins. It's crazy. They speak German. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, my friend Tim Kennedy went down there, and he said he was literally talking to people, interviewing people, and they had photos of SS soldiers on their wall, and they would talk about how grandfather was a hero, and they're like, like, you're the descendants of escaped Nazis. And they put together a town down there.
I mean, the way the Nazis were able to flee is, I can't read enough of that. I mean, that's what Jamie and I were talking about. It's like,
dark.
Oh my God. And it's endless. I mean, they're so, you know, the ones that there was a famous guy that we got. He was the Surgeon General of the Third Reich. I mean, think about that, okay? Dr. Walter Schreiber. I mean, he was such a bad dude. He was in charge of the vaccine program. I mean, you just put those words together and your mind goes really dark, right? But we wanted him because he was an expert in vaccines. And we brought him to the United States. He was the only Nazi I found of the ones, the paperclip scientists who came here, that was actually outed. Right? He was outed as a Nazi, and that's because one of the investigators at the Nuremberg trials recognized him.
Oh, Jesus.
And he's the only one we got out of here. And guess where he went?
Argentina.
And lived out the rest of his life there.
The show was called Finding Hitler. They were trying to find evidence that Hitler somehow escaped. It was really a bullshit premise of the show, but what was interesting is that there were thousands and thousands of Nazis that made it to Argentina and set up shop. It's throughout South America. There's a lot of Germans down there. It's kind of weird.
If you can imagine me on book tour of like the kind of questions I get, because we're talking, right? Having written books about Area 51, Nazis, right? Assassins.
How are you still alive?
People, just last night I was at a book giving a signing, and people are like, "Is Hitler really dead?" You know?
Oh God.
Right?
What if he was alive? He'd be the oldest man alive.
Right?
Can you imagine? He was probably like, how old was he during World War II? He had to be in his 40s, right?
He'd be hundreds, no, but right? Or they say he cloned himself.
He'd be 160 years old.
He'd be 120 now.
Well, that's what he'd be?
1889.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
Jamie knows.
That's an old man. I mean, there's been 120-year-old people, but it's fucking pretty rare.